Do you think that that continues into modern day music as far as like the message getting out, like beyond maybe these indie artists? You always see, for instance, one of the big ones, Jay-Z, they throw up the Illuminati symbolism. Do you think that is them trying to open the eyes of people, or is that a throw to those groups? What could it possibly be?
I think it's almost like taking it back, like, we're the Illuminati now, like I'm the captain now kind of thing. I think it might be a little bit of that, which is kind of, interesting because it's that same tit for tat that most people claim that the real modern day Illuminati, all they're ever doing is just like putting blatant symbols in your face and just doing it, in front of you and inverting things and profaning things. So what a better way than to like from the outside in be like, I'm the Illuminati now.
I like that take on it.
That's true too. I never thought about that. There's so many conspiracies where people are like, "Oh, this person's part of that." But what if we're just mocking it? Not even mocking it, just owning it.
Or just, just playing like, playing the idea, like once you get an idea that, oh, if I put a pentagram or a triangle or, the Eye of Providence in my music video, like I'll get an extra 200,000 hits just from people going crazy and reviewing it on conspiracy boards and everything. Like it just becomes an aesthetic, just like someone might walk into the, creative room and say, oh, I want like a vaporwave aesthetic and I want a cyberpunk aesthetic. And let's just throw some like adrenochrome and conspiracy in there. And if you say that, you're going to get like a black cube. You're going to get an all-seeing eye. You're going to, you get like these very specific tropes, which ends with people considering that Jay-Z and Beyonce are in the literal Bavarian Illuminati from the 1700s or something, which I don't necessarily believe there's a direct lineage between that, but there's obviously, like gatekeepers in different levels of industry.
Do you think this the start of the end for us
I
as a
think
culture?
it's just a continuation of the experiment growing more out of control. Like I've got another I don't have my own podcast, but I do a series with One on One called The Occult Book Club, and we read a bunch of books from like the 1900s and the late 1800s. And there was one we were reading recently. It was literally 100 years ago, 1922 it was written, and it's just about how the decline of society and everyone is just so busy with all their newfangled technology and like all of these these new fiction books that are coming out, and society will never be the same. And you can even go, I can't remember if it was Plato or Socrates, but one of them was talking about like these kids in their books going around and reading like all these fiction novels and stuff. Youth is just going right down right to hell. So it's always been that sort of a theme, but I think that like more now than ever, we've found ways to capitalize and like monetize and turn these opinions into products and little sound bites. So now if it was 10 years ago it was like the headline, it was rage clicking headlines. So if I just wrote something that I knew would make you angry, you'll engage with it, and then I get advertisers. And now it's kind of that on steroids, but all I got to do is show you a 6-second short to get your blood rising, and now you're sending that to people and you're reacting to that, and you don't even have to type out a big angry response. Now you can just do like the little frowny face emoji, and it still counts as that same interaction. So I really think that if people don't figure it out, at least corporations or figure out how to like harness this somehow, we're all going to be like, our opinions and our emotions are going to be like NFTs sold on some black market behind the scenes.
You mentioned the giant megalith stone structure that reminds me of Bohemian Grove with like the owl. Mike, what was the name of the
Minerva.
was it
The Moloch. Some people
Moloch?
see. I don't.
So I got some beef on that. I want to.
I also
we
have
need to clear
beef on
something
that.
up here.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I want to see if it's the same beef.
In my opinion, very strong opinion that I've held for over a decade, it's not Moloch at Bohemian Grove. It mimics the same ritual, right? It's like the cremation of care is a sacrifice to this huge deity. And usually that sacrifice represents like, this ritual sacrifice to burn for all of our sins or our cares so that we can go into the next year kind of like washed of sins. It's just a very traditional pagan style ritual that many different cultures have had. And it gets crossed over with Moloch just because of that, like that human effigy that gets burnt. But that Moloch thing, I'm pretty sure goes directly to Alex Jones when he broke in with Ron Ronson or Ron Johnson or whatever. And Alex Jones said it was Moloch, and then now everyone says that it's Moloch. But really, you were right. It's the Owl of Minerva,
Mhm.
because Bohemian Grove were all about the owl, and they've got it in all of their different symbols. And even when they found that rock sculpture there, it was like, it doesn't really look like an owl, you know what I mean? If someone tells you it's an owl, but you look at it, but when they found it, they were already all invested in the owl. So it was like, oh yeah, the big sculpture, it's an owl, you know, and that turned it into an owl. But it's definitely a pagan sculpture, or a monument. It's definitely used for mock human sacrifices, which is pagan rituals. But I really don't think it's Moloch. If it was Moloch, it would be a bull. It would have like other very specific connotations. But in the conspiracy world, that's almost sacrilege to say that. Like now I'm like a shill, right?
Could you elaborate on the comic book scandal
Comic
that you
Gate.
mentioned? Comic Gate, yeah.
It was basically just a handful of artists that and it was right around leading up to like the 2016 election. So if I could just like grossly oversimplify it, like any conservative comic writers or comic artists got outed and kind of got like, pushed out of the series they had been working on. There was like these large online campaigns of like people emailing DC and Marvel or whoever, or anyone else that was working with certain writers and artists, and just like, we don't want to buy your books anymore. And then in backlash, there was like this full pendulum swing to the other extreme, where Marvel and DC just started hiring up brand new writers to kind of like fill diversity quotas. A lot of people would kind of argue. And you see some of the storylines where all of a sudden, like, a lot of popular comic book heroes are like coming out of the closet, or they're like, just they're kind of being repurposed for all of these different sort of like political takes, as opposed to just letting comic book heroes fight crime and have big muscles and shoot lasers out of their eyes. It started taking a kind of like a stronger tone.